Hey everybody, we're going to do some butt joints today. I'm going to show you 4 different kinds of butt joints that are really common in the workplace. We're going to start ahead and go with the toe screws. Toe screws are really common in construction, especially rough framing, adding in wood structures and houses and small buildings. The point of a toe screw is when you have 2 large pieces joining at a 90-degree angle, you can't get around one or through one to screw into. So you use the connection itself as the area to screw into. So here we're going to do a prime example. This is one you would toe screw. So you can see I have some screws start into the first piece. The common practice is you should always pre-drill before doing this. Pre-drill into your piece, have them lined up correctly, start them at an angle, and use long enough screws so when you run the angle, it goes into the second piece of wood. Normally with these you don't have a lot of room when doing these, so it's kind of a one-shot thing. But you'll get your screw gun. And we'll drive it until it sinks in. And then you'll go around to the other side and do the same thing. A lot of times you can get away with doing just one toe screw. But usually it's better to do 2 because it makes it sturdy. And this joint isn't going to flex or go anywhere. So you can straining it and nothing does. The second one we're going to go through is called dowel pins. Dowel pins are normally when you have some fine finish carpentry that you're trying to work on and try to connect pieces with. A lot of times we use dowel pins because they don't want any screws or holes showing on the board. Dowel pins can also be used at just about any angle you want. I'm going to use a true 90 for simplicity's sake though. The first thing you'll do is you'll find the size of your dowel pins. So what I used was a 5/16 dowel pin. And then I found a 5/16 drill bit and I drilled 2 holes. Now those holes are the same exact size, maybe a little bit smaller than the original dowel pins were. You'll do that in both pieces of wood. This one takes a lot of measuring and marking. Use a reference point to measure off of so you know how to isolate both holes. Mark them, be very careful to drill straight up and down when doing these. You don't want these to be crooked or off-centered because if they don't line up, your wood isn't going to go together well. So you'll do that on both sides. This side you'll see I already have the dowel pins in. I have one in right now and I have the same holes. There I have 1 dowel pin in. I'm not using any wood glue today, and normally you would use wood glue. So you put glue in the hole on the pin, usually in the holes cleaner, and insert your pins. You can just do this by hand. If they're a little bit too tight, sometimes you can tap them with a hammer or something, get them in, but you don't want to force them because they expand as you push them in. And then you'll line up the second set. You're just going to take them and line the holes up with the dowel pins that you've already inserted, and you're just going to push them in place, as such. Now this kind of joint you'll need to clamp together, so usually only do this for small works. This isn't going to be anything structural, it's going to become the most like a chair. So use a wood clamp and hold them together while the glue sets, and afterwards this will be just as good as any screw you can use. Third one I'm going to show you is a hidden joint. This is real similar to the first toe screwing, except you're going inside of the piece of wood. Now I'm going to show you real quick. You can see the screw here. Okay, this kind of hole requires a tool called a jig, and it's basically use a larger drill bit with the aiming device and drill it at an angle inside the piece. Usually because you have an exterior corner piece you don't want a screw showing on or nails showing on, or you don't use dowel pins or whatever reason. So what you do is you'll use the larger piece. I'm not going to do it on camera, but you have the jig lined up and you drill it at an angle, and then you use a smaller drill bit to drill the hole through. Then you use a nice screw. This is a wood screw in here. What you'll do is you'll just line them up on top of each other. You'll start your screw, and then you just drop it like that. Now you have a nice finished corner with no screw showing. This one's also you have to be careful with. You don't want to over drill, and you don't want to use too long of a screw to blow through the outside of your work. And the last one I'm going to show you is called a through screw butt joint. Now this one's one of the simple ones. This is when you have a construction project or something that you don't care if screws or bolts are showing. You'll just, for any angle as well, it doesn't matter. I'm using 90s like I said for simplicity. You just take your butt, push them together, and you use a long enough screw to reach through, and you just drive the screw through. And on this one I'm showing you, you can use any kind of screw. This one doesn't matter, as long as the screw goes through into the other piece, you're fine. This one's the most risky though when it comes to splitting, because you're going into another piece of wood against the grain. So a really good common idea is to line them up to how you want them and then pre-drill and immediately drive the screw in so they stay in line.